In this video, I'm going to discuss inscribed quadrilaterals. We're still dealing with inscribed angles, but now we're going to have inscribed quadrilaterals. So just to recap, quadrilaterals, we went over that last unit. It's a figure that has 4 sides and will have 4 angles. So now how are we going to solve these type of angles? So back to this paper that I said was on Canvas, Unit 7, scroll down, and it'll say as a PDF, circles, formulas, you'll have all this. So far we talked about central angles, inscribed angles, overlapping angles, and now we're going to talk about inscribed quadrilaterals. So if you have an inscribed quadrilateral, then it says that opposite angles are supplementary. So opposite angles are supplementary. Let me just write it down. Supplementary. Opposite angles are supplementary. So this is why it says, so the opposite angle, so opposite side is C. So angle A plus angle C will equal to 180. These two angles. Then the opposite angles, B and D, these angles are going to add up to 180. So opposite angles are supplementary when you have an inscribed quadrilateral. Now I'm going to explain, I'll show you the reason why this is true. Why are opposite angles in a quadrilateral inscribed in a circle, why are they supplementary? So let's go over the reason behind it. Let's say I want to find just angle X and what Y is equal to. So angle A and angle C. I want to find out what X is and what Y is. So based on what we already know, pretend we don't know anything about quadrilaterals inscribed in a circle. Let's just talk about inscribed angles. So angle A, this is an inscribed angle because the vertex of this angle lies on the circumference of a circle. So angle A is an inscribed angle. And what do we know about inscribed angles? An inscribed angle, half of the arc, or the intercepted arc, will give you what that value is, which was over here in the notes and what we discussed previously. So if I look at my angle X, actually angle A for X, this is the angle, right? I need to know that whatever the intercepted arc is, and so X will equal to the intercepted arc and half of it. So you divide that by 2. So what is my intercepted arc? So right now, this is my angle, right? This is the endpoint of the angle in here. So this whole thing is going to be the intercepted arc. So that means my arc BCD. So half, I have to take half of the arc BCD, half of it will give me what X is, because that's the intercepted arc. I have 60 and 50, so you're just going to add them. It's 60 plus 50, that's the arc, and divided by 2. So 60 plus 50 is going to give you 110. That's what this whole arc is equal to. This whole arc right here is 110. So now half of that is going to give me X. So X looks like it's 55 degrees. Okay, so now we're going to look for angle C for Y. Without using that these two opposite angles are supplementary, we're not going to talk about that right now. Let's pretend we're going to just do it based on inscribed angles. This is Y, an inscribed angle. So I know now this whole thing, we added it up, we got it was 110. 110, okay, can't really see that. So this whole thing is 110 degrees. All of that. So if I want to do the same thing, find half of the arc to get angle y, I want to know what is the intercepted arc for angle y. So let me use a different color. So for angle y, not angle y, I'm sorry, angle C, which has y, these are the intercepted arc. So it's going to go from B all the way to D. So a whole circle is 360. So if I know that part of the arc is 110, I'm just going to do, okay, so it's going to be 360 for the arc of BAD. It's going to be 360 minus 110, which will give me 250. So this whole arc right now is 250 degrees. This whole thing, the leftover. Now, because I know this intercepted arc is 250, to get the angle for y, what it will equal to, I just take that arc and divide it by 2, take half of it. So that means angle y should equal to 125 degrees. Now let's see if this is true, because based on what we just talked about, it says opposite angles in an inscribed quadrilateral should be supplementary, meaning these two angles should add up to 180. So let's check. I have 55 plus 125. That does equal to 180. So now that we know this, this is how it came to be. So whenever you have an inscribed quadrilateral, instead of doing this, you could just go ahead, once you find one angle, do 180 minus the other, and you could find the opposite angle. So that's the reason behind it, okay? So it's based on your inscribed angles and your arcs that we talked about on the first video. So now let's practice some examples on it. So we have example 1. Determine the measure of angle H. I want to know what this angle is. Well, we know, basically we just talked about opposite angles in a quadrilateral add up to 180. But I don't have anything here to help me. There's nothing written. So because all opposite angles are supplementary, I'm just going to use these two angles to add up. That way I could figure out what M is. Once you know M, you can find out what H is. So we're going to use the measure of angle A plus the measure of the opposite angle. Okay, has to equal 180. Again, only because I don't have anything for W, the opposite for H. So we're going to have, okay, so it's 8M plus 10M equals 180. Combine like terms. So I'm going to have how many M's? I have 18M equals 180. I want to solve for M, so it's being multiplied by 18. Let's divide. So M will equal to 10. But don't be like, okay, I'm done. No, go back. It says determine the measure of angle H. So if angle H, measure of angle H is equal to 5M, now I know what M is equal to. I'm going to substitute it in. So now I'm going to have 5 times 10. So that means the measure of angle H will equal to 50 degrees. Now we're going to figure out what is the value for part B. Determine the measure of angle W. So now we know that this is 50. So to find W, we know opposite angles in a quadrilateral are supplementary. So they have to add up to 180. So since you know that these two have to add up to 180, all you're going to do is, okay, it's 180 minus your 50. That's going to give you 130 degrees. So now we know, okay, this is 130. Now to find measure of angle A, you're just going to plug it in. So the measure of angle A was 8m, so it's just 8 times your m value, which we found was 10. So that means the measure of angle A is 80 degrees. So this is 80. And K, all you do is plug in 10 times m, so that's going to give you 100. So it's 10 times 10, and I'll give you 100. So that's 100. Now, let's see if you recall. Remember, a triangle, the angles add up to 180. In a quadrilateral, they should always add up to 360. So if I add 50 plus 100 plus 130 plus 80, that's going to equal to 360. And that's always going to happen. And this is why, because these opposite angles are 180, these opposite angles are 180. So 180 plus 180 does give you 360. So you can always double check to make sure if all your angles, when you add them all up, it gives you 360. Okay, so now we're going to do the last example for this, example 2. So it says determine the value of z. So I have z in more than one location. So it doesn't just choose what's going to help you solve it. These are all inscribed angles because the vertex of the angle is on the circle. I don't have any arcs to help me. But because I know right away it's a quadrilateral, 4 sides, I could do the opposite angles are supplementary. So I can't do these two because I don't have an opposite side that's giving me. So I'm just going to use these two, angle S and U, and I know these two angles, when I add them up, it has to equal 180. So I have 8z plus 14z minus 7 degrees equals 180. Constant degrees. So they're in parentheses. So because there's nothing in front of it, just a 1, that means that I'm distributed, just a 1 being distributed. So I'm just going to leave it as 8z. Let's undo the parentheses. And now we're going to combine like terms. So I have 8z plus 14z. That gives me 22z minus 7 equals 180. And now it's your two-step equation. I always take care of addition or subtraction first. So right next to z, there's a subtraction. Let's do the opposite. So I have 22z equals 187. And then my last step is being multiplied. So I'm going to do the opposite. We're going to divide by 22. So this will give you a decimal. You have 187 divided by 22. That's going to give you 8.5. And then for part B, determine the measure of angle U. All we're going to do is plug it in, substitute your value. The measure of angle U is 8z, so it's 8 times 8.5. So when you multiply those two, you're going to get it's 68 degrees. So now we know this is 68 degrees. Now, to find your angle S, you could either substitute it. It's 14z minus 7, so I could plug in that. Or opposite angles are supplementary. So you're doing 180 minus 68. So it's up to you what you want to do. So I'm just going to go ahead, since I know opposite angles are supplementary, I'm going to do, okay, so it's 180 minus 68. So that's going to give me 112 degrees. And again, if you decide to substitute, if that came into your mind first, if you just substitute 8.5, you're going to have the exact same answer. Okay, and then last part, part D, determine the measure of angle R. Okay, so let's go ahead. We know opposite angles are supplementary. So let's figure out what angle T is first, because we know the measure of angle R plus the measure of angle T has to give you 180, right? So let's find angle T. Angle T is 10 times Z. So it's 10 times the Z value, which was 8.5. 8.5, so that's going to give you 85 degrees. So this is 85. Now, there's two ways you can approach this. You could, okay, so in a quadrilateral, it adds up to 360. So if you want, you do 360 minus 112 minus 85 minus 68 will give you that angle. That's one way. Or just know, like we've been doing, opposite angles are supplementary. So that means 180 minus 85 will give you angle R. So that's less steps to subtract. So just do 180 minus 85. That gives me the angle R, which will give me 95 degrees. Because when you add up these two angles, they should give you 180. Okay, so remember, inscribed, a quadrilateral inscribed in a circle, opposite angles are supplementary. These two add up to 180 and these two add up to 180.